let's get into it. Obviously, big news coming out yesterday and moving into today that's getting a lot of traction on YouTube and on the pages is Rick Shiels announcing that he's no longer partnering with Nike as his kind of main endorsement sponsorship. So big change, lots of mixed response, it looks like. So what did you guys make of it?
I mean, to be honest, it makes absolute total sense. He gets to make a lot more money. I think at the stage that he's at, he has enough instant brand recognition within the golfing community. You know, the only golfing YouTuber that are 1 million followers. He has enough of a following where that can lead to probably a more lucrative deal than what he was getting from Nike. So
we're saying he's going to make more money. We don't know how much he's getting paid, for one. And two, I'll tell you the big loss is going to be the fact that he's not going to necessarily get the videos out of it. Because I suppose on his podcast he was talking about the ones that obviously he got to like interview Rory and Jason Day, did the video with Tommy in Dubai. He had the whole thing scheduled with Harry Kane and Tiger Woods, which I think would have topped any video he'd ever done before. Is he going to have the same access to those sorts of athletes without having that?
It depends who he goes with now, because I think it'd be a brave decision to go on his own, because like you said, he could go on his own, but he's going to lose an awful lot of those connections. And
is he though? Because surely now he's started networking his way through that elite group of players. They know who he is now. You know,
but those players do a lot of the things out of contractual obligation. A lot of them are making so much money. In fairness, this is my opinion, most of them would not do half the stuff they did if they didn't have to do it out of their contractual agreements.
Half? All of it?
Yeah, all of it. And that's what I mean. So if Rick's going on his own, those top players aren't going to go, oh yeah, I'm going to spend half a day with you filming a video, because they're making enough money. They don't need the exposure. So I do generally think he will lose that if he went on his own.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to sign with anyone else, because one, there's no bigger brand than Nike for the clothing side of things. And two, the reason he's leaving is because it's more, they're kind of paying per post or whatever he was talking about. So he'd have to kind of push it a lot more. Every other brand's going to ask him to do the same.
No, not after seeing the reason he's left. Another brand will come in and say, right, we'll offer what you had previously.
But are they going to offer just him that and then change it for every other influencer and person they've got pushing their brand?
No, but
every brand pays per post. So it's not just the fact that it's Nike.
No, they don't. It's changing, but I think the mistake Nike have made of doing it across the board, whereas they should have been able to read the situation and go, right, for certain people we can do that, certain people we can't. I think you make a mistake if you just do it blanket, because there are certain circumstances where that works great, and there's others where it.
But the corporate size they are, I guess, can you realistically do that?
You look at it in the NBA, all the shoe deals. None of the players are paid per post, per shoe to wear the shoes. They don't have to go on and say, buy the new Nike shoes. That is an old school, and it works, and they've never changed that.
That's very different, though, because
why?
Those
professional players are typically a lot bigger from that perspective, and two, the ones that are pushing any sort of brand are a brand in and of themselves. They all have their own signature clothing line.
So that can only apply for people that have a certain fan base.
No, that can only apply for people who are at that level. So like they're professional players themselves. Mm-hmm. It's like Nike letting Tiger do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, Tiger has his own brand within Nike. Yeah,
so Tiger doesn't have to push to say, oh, go buy Nike this whatever. Similar to all the other Nike athletes, Rick Shiels isn't considered a Nike athlete. He, for as big of a YouTuber he is within the golfing community, he is just another marketing strategy for them. So he wouldn't fall in that per.
And I'd say there's only 3 brands that are big in golf anyway. Potentially 4.
Yeah, I feel like that's where they've missed the trick though, is why not give him the title of affiliate athlete or something and let him do that? It just seems a big loss for them for something that was a very little change.
But then your point of, is it a bigger loss for him? Because as much as I think I think if he did come out with his own stuff, I think quite a lot of people would be interested in buying it because he's built his own personality across all years of hard work and making sure it's there. You've seen like caps of him with the beard and stuff. I think so. He's building something that's synonymous with him necessarily.
And I think Nike are probably not too fussed because they're going to get the free advertising out of it anyway. Because one, he's made a video on it, so they get that. Two, in that he said he's probably going to be wearing Nike for the foreseeable future because he likes all their stuff. So they're getting free. They don't even have to pay him to do that. So,
but that's why I feel like he won't come out with his own stuff because he made the point. He said, "I'll probably keep wearing and using the stuff," which then makes me feel like he won't. But then also you could argue that, but
then if he
wouldn't sign with someone new because he's got all the Nike stuff. So
yeah. So I think realistically, what he'll, in my mind, he'd carry on wearing that stuff until his stuff is ready, until he's got enough of a branding content strategy as to what he's going to do.
Because he only found out at the beginning of Jan, so he hasn't had the time to put his own clothing line together because that takes 6 to 12 months.
You see, I don't believe it. I think he would have known long in advance of that. I think so. He announced at the 1st of Jan. He would have known 3 or 4 months prior to that there was going to be changes. And you would have, I would have thought if he knew there was a change, when that deal came to an end, that's when you then launch your brand.
I don't know. Well, we don't know what happens because this is only, like a day old.
He probably wants to keep it quite clean and classy, though. He doesn't want to one day say, I'll break with Nike, next day buy all my stuff after he's just said, I don't want to push Nike stuff.
No, I do think he's a nice and genuine guy in that sense that he will give it almost a period of time before he comes out with it. So, it might well be in development. We don't know. It might not be, but I do think I wouldn't anticipate it coming out in a week's time or anything like that. But I do see a future video coming out and his own products, essentially, clothing line, head covers.
I think that's the only route because why would he take a step back to smaller golfing brands?
Yeah,
the only other brands are sort of Under Armour, FootJoy, and maybe like Adidas, and none of them are going to give them the same.
I agree, but does he have a big enough fan base? Like 1.5 million is obviously in terms of his division within golf, it's the biggest. But golfing as a whole, that is very small. Is it a big enough fan base to support him running his own franchise?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's other YouTube channels that do it. In terms of they run their sweatshirts, hoodies, whatever. And plus, I think. In golf, more so than other channels, you're more likely to buy golf apparel than you are, a hoodie containing a gaming channel's tag or whatever. And I think, the golfing market as a whole is a buying market. All of us have gone out and bought stuff, whether that be golf balls or specific clubs or whatever, because we've seen our favorite players use them or people that we like use them with the marketing. So I think there's enough of an appetite still within that, and obviously he gets to keep all of it, which will make a big difference, I reckon.
Well, I'm just going for my personal. I personally think it would be a massive struggle to compete with. It's not like he's going to 1.5 million people that don't buy from anywhere else. All these people like me and Tom have a lot of Under Armour or Nike stuff, a lot. Are we all?
But he might not even want to do that. He might just be like, "It's fine, it's broken. I just don't want to push stuff down my audience's throat, and I'm not going to do my own brand."
Yeah, which is what I think. I don't think he will. Yeah, I generally don't think he will. Yeah.
To be honest, I see, enough people in the future. Maybe even if not, hello.
Nope.
Even if not Rick, I do see enough people in the future going down that route. There's other channels that will. There's other channels that will.
But all he's got to do, he's got 1.5 million subscribers. All he's got to do is sell 50,000 jumpers and use for each one for 30 quid, and you've made.
I think you're overestimating like how much. Like you look at some of the big like influencers, like Dude Perfect. They came out and they showed the stats of like their sales from last year, and some of their items weren't selling more than 10,000. They've got 55 million.
Yeah, but they've also been selling their stuff for 10 years. So people are going to buy stuff for bought stuff.
Yeah. I would just be very surprised if it did. I just don't feel like the market is there for it.
But he's obviously testing the waters because he put out a post and was like, what do you think about this? Because he's obviously got some sort of
I
stuff
do.
to
They'll
test
be,
the stuff. So he's obviously testing the waters to see what.
Or is it a come and get me to all the other brands?
I don't think they'd do it. FootJoy have got Peter Finch now, so then the only other one left is really kind of like Adidas and Under Armour. And what can they offer him that Nike couldn't have?
Yeah, but it's not necessarily what Nike couldn't. It was what Nike was wanting to change. They could go and offer what Nike offered previously or less.
Yeah.
Exactly. They don't have to offer more. They just need to offer what he wanted from Nike, which was just to wear the gear but not have to physically.
Even that comes back to your point, the amount they're probably paying him, is it worth it? How many more sales are they going to get if he's not pushing it? Yeah, it comes down to that at the end of the day. For the brand, they want people to push it because then they get more sales. And if someone's not pushing it, then what's sort of a waste of money, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all subjective, because I know I'm not the sort of person, if I see someone wearing something going, I'll get that, but obviously that's subjective, isn't it? So it's hard to.
I guess depends what it is, doesn't it? Really. But obviously, this is all speculation. Rick, if you want to let us know what you're up to, mate, we'll happily have you on here.
Yeah. Likewise, Nike.
He says in his Under Armour shirt.
Nike. If you want to, let me do this.
I'm unbranded.
Yeah. But there you go. Right, we'll move on to some of the other news, which probably links into a few of the things we were saying last week about Rory being elected to the Player Advisory Council for the coming year. And obviously that's elected by other players.
3 years.
Is that because they've seen him rant about all the changes and the regulation? Like, yeah, go fight our cause.
Yeah.
I think he's the first big player who's ever sort of put himself out there and said stuff against, the boards and whatnot. And so he's got that following. He's got the backing to kind of say those sorts of things without any sort of, without repercussions. So it's the person you'd probably want to come out and say he's got the biggest reach, widest reach. They're not going to shy. They're not going to want to upset him as well from the board side. So yeah, I think it's a good move from that side of things. And he gets, obviously, the distance thing. He can push his... all the other players obviously feel the same, that it doesn't need to change. So that's probably why.
Hopefully he doesn't have the same downfall that Spieth did when he took on the role and then didn't win anything the whole 3-year period he was doing it. So,
well,
hopefully
yeah, I mean, fingers crossed that isn't it. But I genuinely do like it. I think it was needed, and it needed to be a big name for them to not only garner the respect of the other players, but also to have the publicity and the media kind of listen to them as well. And Rory has all of that in abundance.
I think it's even more interesting as well. He's the first international player to hold the position. So with the closer the two tours are getting, it's having someone in that international position who's been across both tours, played both tours regularly, to be able to guide that as well. So that's interesting as well. Yeah. See, everyone else in it's American, so they've obviously got the PGA focus, but as things merge, things are going to be done differently. So I think it's good for golf, and yeah, he can obviously assert his authority on the USGA. Yeah.
Well, I think it's the exposure as well, because from my opinion, and I know from a lot of people wouldn't have really known what the Players Advisory Council was or even heard of it, in fairness, because it is, like you said, so not Americanized, but it's dominated by the groups and players. And
it's tour specific though. So if you follow golf casually, you're not going to know, because it's all about the rules and golf and the PGA Tour specifically. So
but because of Rory, because he does transcend some of those boundaries into, a lot of people know he's outside of golf. That's, I imagine, why it will get more exposure.
I think all of that as well. And I think, his point of, any big changes as well need to be considered, because realistically, you're looking at the 0.01% of the golf playing population, and why his work, I think, with the USGA is is going to be as important as the work with the PGA stuff.
It's basically the same thing to the same degree. It's still dealing with, obviously, USGA dictate what happens on the PGA Tour, so it's that. And yeah, so and after his outburst, we'll say, they're not going to want to do anything cloak and dagger anymore because they can't with him because they have to involve the board. And if they don't, and if they do something to upset him, they know that he's got the precedent now that he will probably say something publicly.
But as well, I was giving that a bit more thought about the topic that he is speak out about, because we were saying, it affects 0.01%. It doesn't even, because it affects 10 players out of the world's top 100. So,
it doesn't though, because it's all relative. Like we were saying last time, if you take 30 yards from every player, it's still the same because the disparity is still the same. Everyone loses 30 yards. So.
But yeah, but I think I think having Rory there probably for the best. It's not. He's going to stand his ground, and yeah, it should be good.
No, definitely agree. We'll interesting to see how that goes basically over the coming years.
Yeah.
But then I guess other big news, what everyone in the UK is eagerly anticipating next week on the 22nd is Bojo's big announcement. That's Boris Johnson to everyone abroad. And this week, the CEO of Golf England or England Golf, whichever, however you want to say it, has kind of put put his
gauntlet down.
Yeah, getting involved in the recovery basically, but then also that first phase release out of lockdown, making golf part of that and try and follow in suit to what Scotland have been doing and other places that have made it work amongst other type restrictions. So, yeah.
To be honest, I mean, the quicker they open, the better for all of us. Specifically, we can get out there and make more stuff. But I think that was already kind of in the pipeline in terms of working, because they did say that it would be very soon after the first restrictions were eased back that golf would be one of the first things that comes back in terms of public activity. England tennis have made the same sort of push as well in terms of lobbying, but not to quite the same extent. Obviously being the two biggest outdoor sports, I think, in England.
Tennis outdoors?
And the problem is in tennis, you've got to share
non-contact. But yeah. But obviously, so golf is best place to do the the whole individual thing. But
it's like flogging a dead horse. I think we've all made the point. Everyone's made the point that at the end of the day, if someone can go out for a walk with their friend, why can't I go and walk? Probably even further apart, because we're not going to be anywhere near each other, and do it that way. And I don't have to touch anything that they're going to have touched. So. Yeah. The only problem that's going to arise is that as soon as you start doing this for specific sports, every other sport is gyms are going to be writing saying, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Other sports are going to start doing that.
They're just avoiding the hassle and aggro that's going to come with it, I think, aren't they? More than anything, it's just their route of the easiest route, basically, isn't it?
Path of least resistance, yeah.
Yeah. But, and to be honest, and we won't turn this political, but there's no rhyme or reason why it isn't. But yeah, I think England still has one of the highest, R rates in the world. So that, it still has to be mindful of how to proceed. But I think, if restrictions are being rolled back, golf should be one of the ones that is brought back first. Then yeah.
No complaints from our side. No. Right, and then in other news as well, following on from Anika over the last couple of weeks announcing her return from, we'll say, retirement, Yani Tseng has also announced she's going to come back. I don't know if there was an email sent to all the retired alumni in the women's sport and all decided to reply and return, but
she's not as retired. She's just now ranked like 900th in the world. So
she did have 2 years at number one.
Yeah.
Consecutively,
109 consecutive weeks, and 5 majors. So it's all running out of money.
And it's an esteemed record. I would have. I think the money element is right. I think Seb kind of touched on it last week that the women's game is growing in popularity, in money. So naturally, the money you can make now would be way better than what you were able to do 10 years ago. So,
although it's an interesting point that they feel they can still compete. Whereas you don't see guys coming back
from the Masters Tour.
You've got older people, obviously Phil, those sorts of people still going, but you don't really see anyone unless it's like Masters or people, the odd person, but coming back and competing kind of for a whole season. Is that because they can't physically compete anymore in terms of keeping up with the distance?
I think there's more opportunity for the men at the older age. You've got the seniors PJ, and there's more opportunity on the men's side for them to keep playing at an older age but at a less competitive level, but still making good income. Whereas I think that's not as established on the women's side yet.
I think that you've got the Masters Tour, which I reckon Phil will probably end up spending half his time between the PGA and the old Champions Tour essentially. But
there's a little rumor that Phil's going to become an analyst in the booth rather than play. So.
I would be all game for that. I'd love to see hear what Phil has to say. But I think, touching on Seb's point, probably that. But also, I do think that there is a slight difference in competition, especially with the younger guys coming through. They are hitting it longer. They are hitting it. They are hitting further, and if you're not as on it, you will fall behind. Obviously, we've not seen anyone who's returning in the women's game go back straight to winning. So it's not like that. It's not a case of the fact that there's not enough competition on that side. I still think until we see that's when we can start having the conversation. I think for the time being, it's probably just get as much money whilst you still can.
Agreed. I think they're all just bored during lockdown, aren't they? But there you go. And I guess carrying on from his good form at Waste Management, Spieth had a very good Thursday through Saturday again. But I think keeps, not bottling, it's probably the wrong word, but I think he's still getting back into the swing of things, isn't he? Pardon the pun.
Yeah. It just reminds me a little bit of when he was at the top of the rankings a little bit these last 2 weekends, that it seems that the first 3 days he does it all, hits some amazing shots, then can't sustain it, because when he was at the top of his game, he was holding. Let's see, I just need to turn his lights back on. Yeah, but he was holding putts at kind of an unsustainable rate. The last 2 weeks, he's been holding out from everywhere. He had 2 eagles from the fairway, kind of Thursday through Saturday. So I think he gets to the point where he gets a good position, but it's through a bit of stuff that's sort of unsustainable, putting himself in positions that he gets out of. But then on Sunday, it kind of runs dry a little bit.
It's always that tee to green percentage, isn't it? So when he was winning everything, he was top 2 and wasn't outside the top 2 for like a whole year in terms of tee to green. Whereas in his rough patch, he has been way off the pace. Barely cranking the top 100 in that regard.
I think everything was wrong over the last couple of years, though. In all honesty,
I think it's really, really good to see him come back, because very few players that go to such meteoric highs and chasing history almost in terms of doing all the majors in a year, and then fall all the way down. Very, very few players have the mental fortitude to come back. And the fact is,
we're seeing it again. Kepka's done it again as well. Obviously, winning Waste Management. So obviously, it's something to be said for.
I think it takes a massive amount of mental fortitude. All the work that he has done, and the fact that he seems to be playing with a bit of a smile again, which is the big difference. So although he hasn't won one yet, I can't imagine it's too far off.
Do you think? Do you think the Sunday claps probably the wrong word, but not struggle? Do you think it's because the last 2 tournaments, when he's done so well, on the Sunday, all focus is in on him, all pressures on him, everyone forgets about every other player that's there, and it's all on him? Do you think that makes it easier for some of the other guys? Like Berger on the weekend, no one even talked about him prior to probably midway through the round on the Sunday. All the focus was on Jordan.
I don't think it's about making it easier for the other guys. I think it makes it harder for Jordan. I think that's the problem. I doubt he'll ever admit it, even though he did kind of come out and say, he's only just getting sort of used to being back at the top of the leaderboard and being in those positions. But I think that obviously will play a part more so than the other guys having less pressure, because
also
when you're out on a golf course, you don't really know where you're at and what other people are doing. So
at the start of the round, though, there wasn't much attention on him. Yes, he'd had the great performance at Waste Management, but all this focus was on Cantley at the start of the after the first round, his performance going into it. So I think it swings both ways. So it will just take time for him to understand being in that winning position, and the sort of, like I said, Tom said, the decision making that goes into it, whether you've got there off the back of something that's sustainable or not. So whether that's going for a hole out or taking your par and moving on.
Although it is great for golf in general, because I think he's one of those people who transcend. People know who he is outside of just golf as well. So I think that's an added bonus.
Right, and then to end it off, we'll go through our predictions from last week, which I think predictions is a loose word for
guys.
Horrendous guesses.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
Our best prediction for this 21st, and bear in mind that's joint 21st. There was more than 35 players above him, so it's not we'll
At least he made it to the weekend, unlike mine.
Yeah, Tom went for Siwoo, and
he went.
Yeah, he went bye.
Oh yeah, where's the puns here? I've got on. Yeah. You said see. Oh, I can't see we later.
Exactly what I was going to say.
And then I went for Francesco, who, in fairness, got more highlights than most people for his beautiful drive off the first tee.
One of the most relatable things I think we've seen all year.
Oh, that was amazing.
You do like to see it, though. It makes you feel better about yourself.
I love the tracer on that as well. Yeah. And the fact that it just ended up on the other tee.
Yeah.
That was, just past
It's also the fact that he's so good that he could get a bogey out of something like that as well.
And then an honourable mention to Sehab, who picked Furyk, who finished 21st. But bear in mind, it was 35 people.
Hey. For a man who you and Tom said would barely make around the golf course to finish ahead of all of your picks, thank you very much. I'll take my honorary victory for this week.
Are you going to hold that, are you, for this week? Yeah.
And congratulations on your 0 points with the honorary victory, Sehab.
Moral victory goes to Sehab. Congratulations. Yeah,
right. But then, fair play to Berger. It was a very good, consistent performance throughout the week, and obviously, just consistently playing.
What were your thoughts on his comments after the game? After the win, that he will outwork every single player on the course. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's very subjective. It's like, what does he mean by outwork?
That, don't you?
You would argue Furyk's outworking.
Yeah, but you have to
twice their age.
If you came up and in your interview, you're like, oh, how'd you do this? And he was just like, I just rocked up, didn't I? Yeah, didn't work too hard. Yeah,
just play the round I had to play. And
it's like asking any player. They always ask every player. It's like, oh, how did you feel about your chances of coming here and winning? Did you want to compete? And you're like, unless you're Kevin Kisner, yes, they want to come here and win.
Throw back to why we include the top 20s. But to be fair, I also saw a lot of positivity in the form of Akshay Bhatia coming through as well. I think it's his
18 out of 18 greens.
Yeah, I think it was his 11th appearance on the tour, but the first really noticeable one for a lot of the wider audience. And I was, to be honest, I felt actually very happy to see someone similar, maybe not in capability, but in appearance.
Where is he?
I think American? he's American, but of Indian descent, I believe. Yeah. But he is, and the fact of he's technically been pro for a couple of years already as well. Didn't go down the college route. It's quite interesting as to whether more and more players will do that as well. But
he's only 19.
Yeah, I think another one to add to the up and comers list.
It was the perfect opportunity for someone like that to show their worth when none of the top 10 were there. It was the perfect opportunity to step up, which he did. Took advantage of it.
And admittedly, he didn't win in the end, but I think the fact that he'll definitely get himself a sponsor's invite onto a few more events, hopefully for the rest of the year. I'd certainly like to see him back and see what he can do. But also the fact that it was 18 out of 18 greens on Pebble Beach, and I said this last week as well, that I think Pebble Beach is a much harder course to play, especially for American players, because essentially is of the link style golf that it is. What kind of
harder? But then you just can't, because he's 19 and he hit 18 out of 18 greens. It can't be that hard.
No, but not very, very few players throughout history have done that. Yeah. So it shows an extraordinary performance. but also the fact of what kind of amused me a bit was the commentators and everyone saying, "Oh, it's a bit windy and it's raining and it was a bit of cloud cover. The flag was barely flying from the wind, and they were having massive."
You say it's that much harder though, but Berger won 18 under, which is better than Koepka did to win the Waste Management.
I don't think necessarily the exact under score matter. I think it's about the difficulty of the course in total, because they had to play very, very well to get those scores. It wasn't you were punished if you were have a look at Phil Mickelson. On the 18th, he wasn't feeling it that day. Clearly, chasing the cut, ends up scoring what I think was a 7 in the end, 2 balls in the water.
You can't point to Phil Mickelson. He's not made a cut in any of the tournaments.
No, but the point of
he's just not playing good golf.
No, but for example, it's a course that actually punishes you when you play badly. You don't. The rough actually made it difficult.
I can't agree with this. I think every PGA Tour venue
and the waste management, the last 2 or 3 holes. Well. Scheffler, Spieth, they all got it on the water. They all threw it on the last couple of holes, and that's.
I just felt as well with the conditions as well, it was a lot closer to European Tour conditions, and a lot of those players found it very uncomfortable. That's why you saw a lot of the guys from, again, I think we said this in our very, very first podcast, why aren't the British players doing well? Yes, they are. Knox went out, did great. Casey went out, he's consistently performing everywhere he goes now. Once again, so I think as soon as the weather conditions aren't 100% perfect,
of the top 26 players, 20 were American.
But look at the top 10.
How many were American out of how many played though?
Top 10, 2 of them were not American.
Yeah, but how many non-British? Well,
how many of the top
non-Americans? No, but how many non-Americans played? That you also have to consider that. There's only
because if only 5 non-American played and 2 of them in the top 10, then it's really context, Tom.
Fair amount, to be fair.
But yeah,
I take your points. Yeah, but
I take your point, but I don't think it's that relevant for this tournament. To be honest,
I just like Pebble Beach. I think it has a lot of iconic holes.
It does.
Anyway, well, we'll move on, but the scores are no different to last week because we all suck. And upcoming this.
But if you're going to listen to anyone, listen to me because clearly I'm the best.
You're tied. All you've got to say is if you're going to listen to anyone, not me.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah. If you want a good top 10 finish, listen to Tom. If you might chance to win, me or Siab. But Siab's up first for this week, then myself, then Tom. But obviously it's the Genesis Invitational, and pretty much anybody that's anybody is there. So who you got, Siab?
I've got number 1.
It's the obvious pick.
I'm going Dustin. I hope he doesn't let me down this week, but tee to green, he is Dustin.
Well, he's the best player in the world.
He's the best player in the world.
Tee to anywhere.
Yeah. I do hope he's had a think about his putting, because his putting at Saudi was...
Take a long hard look at yourself in the mirror, Dustin.
Honestly, his putting at Saudi was atrocious to the standards I imagine he holds himself to.
So bad that he won the tournament.
I mean, if you were watching, he gave you a damn good scare that he wouldn't. But yeah, to be honest, I on form, in the fact that he's done very well at the course before as well. Yeah, I'm gonna go. No, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that's the obvious pick. I'm gonna go for Rory on the basis I think he's due a win. I was very tempted to go with Bubba as an outside shout.
That is a very bold shout.
That's as bad as my Furyk outside shout.
Yeah, but Furyk hasn't won Pebble Beach multiple times previously, like Bubba has at the Invitational, if you do your research. He loves the course, consistently performs very well. As an outside chance, if I was going to put a bet on,
and
bet on
also
Bubba, because you get awful odds on everyone else. But
and for Furyk, and why bet on him at Pebble Beach? He is in the top 3 at greens in regulation at Pebble Beach, I think all time, which was one of the reasonings why I went for him.
So he did well to finish 21st. Anyway, we'll move on. So Siab's got Dustin. I've got Rory. Tom.
No, have you got Rory or have you got Bubba?
No, I've got Rory. I was saying Bubba. If we were doing a stupid outside one, it'd be Bubba. I've got Rory.
All right.
I shall go for JT, who in his practice round got a hole in one. So
But that's a practice round.
Yeah, but shows that you can.
Confidence
Is going to be there. So
is it
JT? He's not. He's going to be in a better mental state than he was the last time he played.
Hopefully, we can only hope.
So
in fairness, he was doing very well in the tournament up until that point as well at Waste Management. So if he can carry on that form.
As a fun aside, seeing as we're now bringing wildcards into it, does everyone want to have a wildcard pick? Seb's is Bubba. Who's your wildcard pick, Tom?
Or do we want to have a wildcard pick that you get like 3 wildcard picks in the season?
No.
I play one whenever you want. Then you've only got 3 to use.
I'd say on a tournament like this you can, but they can't be in the top 10 or 20, for example. It has to be like a Bubba or someone like that is an actual outsider, not like as my backup I'm going for JT. It can't be that.
Go on, all right.
We all have to agree it's an actual wild card.
Because I've got a guy in mind, and I hope you don't pick him. So I'll just come out and say if you're going to think about it, I'm going to go Cameron Champ.
He's with a good group.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, I've never got this, to be honest with you, about Cameron Champ. Just because he's won one tournament that no one else played in, and he can hit it far, he gets to play with these other players.
Yeah, well, that's what everyone was
hits it far,
weren't they? The fact that Spieth's been grouped with.
Do you know who?
Furyk and
can
stuff,
I go for Tony Fee now as my wild card?
To win or do what?
To win, yeah.
Actually, no. I might.
Are we going to allow that, Siab?
No. Tony Finau's too good. Is Hideki playing?
I would imagine so.
Yeah,
do you know what?
Everyone's there.
I'm going to go Jordan Spieth because he's 62nd in the world, so he has to be a wild card.
After his last 2 tournament finishes, come on, really? You want a former world number 1 to be a wild card?
Yeah, no, fine, fair enough.
Come on. I don't know if I should stick with Cameron or not.
You've said it now.
I haven't looked at the player list.
You've passed the puck to Tom. Come on, Tom.
Come on.
I would be tempted to say Ricky Fowler if he hadn't been so bad for a while. I'm going to say Jason Day if he's playing. I'm assuming he's playing.
Yeah, he's all right.
Yeah, he's outside the top 20 though, isn't he?
He's like 80th in the world now.
Is he? He hasn't played a lot though, has he?
Well, he played last week.
I don't know if he's playing actually.
He played at Pebble Beach. Was in the running for a short while.
It must have been.
I don't think he's playing.
I didn't see it.
Let's have a look.
Don't you worry, Tom. I'll cut this out.
Oh, I've got a player who I think might actually win. Who, as a wild card, who might actually do better, but I don't know if you'd allow it.
I'm going to say Matt Fitzpatrick.
That's what the delay does to you, Tom.
But he's already said his, so.
No, but I wanted to change it to Matt Fitzpatrick.
You can't change it. You can't change it. Thank you, Fitzpatrick, for me.
You did pass the ball, so have I declared that.
Who did you say again?
Cameron
Champ, yeah.
I said.
That's quite funny, to be fair.
It's because I generally think Fitzpatrick will do well on the course. I think the course suits his style.
Yeah.
I don't think Bubba will do particularly well. I just think it'd be hilarious if he did.
Are you sticking with Bubba as your wild card?
Yeah, because I would just love to see it happen. I don't think he'll do well, but for a man that's
it would be
He's more interested in social media and flying golf carts and crap. He's not worried about golf anymore. But it'd be fun if he did it.
That's true. He's doing TikToks and stuff now.
Well, he did it on the 16th, didn't he? Like in the practice round, they're like, we're filming TikToks in a bunker. I'm like,
oh god, wow.
He's that embarrassing dad now, isn't he? He's like trying to keep up with the times and keep up with the kids.
He's like flossing with some 10-year-olds in a bunker. If you didn't know what flossing is, it probably sounded really filthy, but